The dragon ships appeared in Earth's sky on a Tuesday morning. They didn't ask permission. They didn't send warnings. They simply arrived. Massive crystalline spheres that hung over every major city like Second Son's. Ambassador Volcarith had done this 40 times before. 40 different worlds, 40 different species, all ending the same way. The primitives would see the dragons in their true glory, understand how small they were, and kneel. It always worked. The Draconic Imperium had ruled the galaxy for 12,000 years because it always worked. He materialized above New York City in his true form, wings stretching wide enough to cast shadows over entire blocks. His scales caught the sunlight and threw it back in brilliant reds and golds. Below him, humans scattered like insects. Good. Fear was the beginning of respect. People of Earth, his voice boomed across every speaker, every phone, every device on the planet. The Imperium's technology made such things trivial. You have been chosen to join the Draconic Imperium. You will submit your weapons, your ships, your government. You will accept your place in the natural order. We are dragons. We are eternal. We are your masters now. Volcarith had given this speech so many times he could recite it in his sleep. Usually, by this point, the local leaders were already prostrating themselves, begging to negotiate terms. The Kelthani had offered their children as hostages within an hour. The Proxim had surrendered before he finished speaking. The humans did something different. They opened fire. Missiles streaked up from the city below. Primitive chemical rockets that exploded harmlessly against his shields. Volcarith laughed, a sound like thunder. Did they really think such toys could harm him? He prepared to demonstrate what dragonfire could do to a city that forgot its place. Then his second-in-command spoke urgently in his mind. Ambassador, you need to see this. Every major city was responding the same way. Not with diplomacy, not with surrender, with weapons. The humans were attacking dragon ships across their entire planet simultaneously. They don't understand what they're facing, Volcarith said. They'll learn. But something nagged at him. The humans weren't screaming or panicking. Their attacks were coordinated, targeted, methodical. They were fighting like they expected to fight, like they'd prepared for this exact moment. How long had they known the Imperium was coming? 3 days later, Volcarith stood in the United Nations building. He'd taken a more diplomatic form now, merely 8 feet tall with wings folded against his back. The building hadn't been damaged in his demonstration. He'd made sure of that. You always left the government intact, so they had someone to sign the surrender. Secretary General Maria Santos entered the chamber. She was shorter than Volcarith expected, her hair gray, her face lined with age. Humans lived such brief lives. This woman had perhaps 20 years left if she was lucky. What could someone so temporary understand about the eternal? Secretary General, Volcarith began, his voice measured and patient. I trust you've reconsidered your position. The demonstration in Snow Paulo should have clarified matters. Snow Paulo had burned. Not the whole city, just enough to make a point. 300,000 dead. Volcarith felt no pleasure in it, but the Imperium's rules were clear. Defiance required consequences. Santa sat down slowly. She looked tired. We've been studying you, she said. Excuse me? For 5 years since we first detected your ships at the edge of our solar system. We've been watching, learning. We found the Kelthani, the Proxim, the Yawl. We talked to them. Learned their histories. Learned what your Imperium really means. Volcarith felt a flicker of something uncomfortable. You spoke to lesser castes? They filled your head with complaints, no doubt. Every civilization has malcontents. Every one of your subject species is a slave, Santos said flatly. You take their resources, their labor, their children. You breed them for compliance. The Kelthani used to have art, philosophy, dreams. Now, they have quotas. The Proxim built machines that could think. You destroyed them all and made the Proxim into factory workers. The Yule had libraries that spanned centuries. You burned them and kept just enough scholars to maintain your own technology. We brought order to chaos, Valkareth said, but his voice lacked its usual certainty. We gave purpose to purposeless species. You gave them chains and called it destiny. Santos pulled out a tablet and slid it across the table. These are your terms. Submit within 30 days or face cleansing. That's what you call it, right? When you burn a species down to pre-industrial levels and start over with the survivors. The burning is reserved for those who prove themselves incapable of civilized integration. It's genocide with a pretty name. Santos stood up. Here are our terms, Ambassador. Leave. Go back to your Imperium and tell them Earth is not interested. We will not submit. We will not kneel. We will not become your slaves. Valkareth stared at her. In 12,000 years, no one had said these words. You understand what you're choosing? The Imperium will return with fleets that will darken your sky. We will reduce your cities to ash. Your species will be lucky if 1 in 100 survives. We understand, Santos said. Her voice didn't shake. We've run the projections. We know what war with you means. We know we'll probably lose. Then why? Because some things are worse than death. She walked to the window, looking out at New York City and millions of humans going about their lives. We talked to the Kalthani. One of them told us something I'll never forget. He said, we forgot what we used to be. Don't let them take that from you too. Santos turned back to face him. So no, Ambassador. Earth refuses. If you want our world, you'll have to take it. And we'll make you pay for every inch. Valkareth felt that uncomfortable feeling grow stronger. It took him a moment to identify it. Fear? No, not quite. Something else respect, and that was dangerous. You couldn't respect something you needed to dominate. You have 30 days, he said quietly, and left as his ship rose through Earth's atmosphere. Valkareth looked down at the blue and green world below. So beautiful. So fragile. In 30 days, it would burn. Unless something impossible happened. Unless the humans found a way to win. The Draconic Armada assembled at the edge of Earth's solar system. 300 warships, each one a masterpiece of conquest, each one capable of reducing a planet to rubble. Valkareth commanded the vanguard from his flagship, the Eternal Flame. Around him, dragon warriors made final preparations, checking weapons that could melt steel, shields that could deflect nuclear fire. They've had their 30 days, his tactical officer reported. No surrender. No communication. They've been building things. Building? Valkareth pulled up the sensor data. The humans had been busy. Earth's orbit was crowded with new satellites, new stations, new structures that sensor analysis couldn't quite identify. What are those? Unknown. They don't match any known weapons platforms. Something cold settled in Valkareth's chest. The Imperium sensor technology was the best in the galaxy. If they couldn't identify human constructions, that meant the humans were using principles the Imperium didn't recognize. How is that possible? All ships, Valkareth commanded. Proceed to Earth. Maximum shields. Stay in formation. The Armada moved forward like a river of fire, hundreds of ships advancing in perfect coordination. This was how the Imperium fought, with overwhelming force, unshakable discipline, the weight of 12,000 years of martial superiority. They were halfway to Earth when the first impacts hit. No warnings. No energy signatures. Just sudden, catastrophic collisions as objects moving at impossible speeds tore through dragon shields like they weren't there. 3 dreadnoughts simply disintegrated, turned into expanding clouds of debris. Report. Valkareth roared. Kinetic weapons, sir. Solid projectiles, no propulsion, moving at significant fractions of light speed. We can't track them until impact. They're too small, too fast, no heat signature. More impacts. 5 ships, 8, 12. The humans had turned physics itself into a weapon. Simple tungsten rods accelerated to relativistic speeds, each one carrying more destructive force than a nuclear warhead. Evasive maneuvers. Advance at full speed, get into orbital range where we can target their launchers. But as the armada closed on Earth, Valkareth realized the humans had prepared for that too. Those mysterious structures in orbit suddenly made sense. Every satellite was a weapon. Every piece of space debris hid mines. Every abandoned station was rigged to explode when dragons came near. The humans weren't fighting like a civilization. They were fighting like someone who knew they had nothing to lose. We're taking heavy casualties, his second-in-command reported. 23 ships lost. 47 damaged. Push through, Valkareth ordered. Once we reach firing range, this ends. But reaching firing range meant entering the debris field Earth had created. Millions of tiny objects, each one a potential collision at these speeds. The dragon shields handled most of them, but the sheer volume was overwhelming systems. Draining power reserves died, and then the human fighters appeared. They weren't impressive vessels. Small, crude, chemical rockets and primitive fusion drives. A single dragon could tear one apart with minimal effort. But there were thousands of them, and they moved like nothing Valkareth had ever seen. They swarmed dragon ships, attacking from blind spots, targeting weak points in shield coverage with unsettling precision. How do they know our vulnerabilities? Someone demanded. Santos had told him. They'd studied the Imperium. 5 years of preparation. They'd talked to every conquered species, learned from every defeat the Imperium had inflicted. The humans had turned the Imperium's history into a textbook and learned every lesson. Deploy dragon warriors, Valkareth commanded. Ship-to-ship combat. We end this the old way. Dragons emerge from the warships in their true forms, majestic and terrible, wings spreading across the void. This was how the Imperium had always fought. Dragon against ship, claw and fire against steel and technology. It was how they conquered 40 worlds. The humans were ready for that too. Valkareth watched in disbelief as human fighters targeted the dragons themselves. Weapons that tracked body heat, missiles that could turn on a microthruster, rounds that could punch through dragon scales. The humans weren't trying to fight honorably. They were trying to kill efficiently. 3 dragons fell in the first minute. 10 more in the next 5. These were warriors who'd lived for centuries, who'd conquered species and shattered fleets. The humans were killing them like they were nothing more than targets. Sir, we need to withdraw, his tactical officer said quietly. We do not retreat, Valkareth snarled. With respect, Ambassador, we're losing. They're fighting like what? Like they've been preparing for this war their entire lives. Valkareth looked at the tactical display. 47 ships lost now. 2,000 dragons dead. The humans were taking losses too. Their orbital defenses were falling. Their satellites dying. Their fighters exploding in brilliant flashes. But they kept coming. For every human pilot that died, 2 more took their place. He thought of Santos, standing in that office, telling him some things were worse than death. The humans believed it. They were proving it. All ships, Valkareth said, the words tasting like ash. Fall back to Rally Point Delta. We regroup and reassess. The retreat was orderly, professional. Everything a dragon withdrawal should be. But it was still a retreat. The first time in living memory that a draconic fleet had been turned back on as the eternal flame limped away from Earth. Valkareth pulled up the last message the humans had broadcast during the battle. It was simple, direct, meant for every species in the galaxy that might be listening. This is Admiral James Chun of the United Earth Defense Force. We do not surrender. We do not kneel. If you want our freedom, come and take it. But know that we will make you bleed for it. Valkaris watched Earth shrink in his view screen. That blue and green jewel that had just done the impossible. Across the galaxy, on 100 conquered worlds, people who'd forgotten what defiance looked like were remembering. And the Imperium, for the first time in 12,000 years, looked vulnerable. The news spread through the galaxy faster than light itself. In the sprawling factory complexes of Proxim worlds, workers whispered during shifts. On Kelthani station habitats, people shared Forbidden's video files. Among the Yul scholar slaves, encrypted messages passed from hand to hand, eye to eye, mind to mind. The humans said no. The humans fought back. The humans made the dragons bleed. And most importantly, the humans survived. On the dragon homeworld of Valkyrax, the High Council convened an emergency session. Empress Shalmarax presided, her form so ancient and vast that she rarely appeared in physical space anymore. When she manifested before the council, reality itself seemed to bend around her presence. "Explain," she said, her voice resonating in frequencies that made stone vibrate, "how 300 warships failed to conquer a single primitive world." Valkarith stood before the council, his scales dim with shame. The humans were prepared, Empress. They knew we were coming. They had years to study us, to learn from species we'd previously conquered. They didn't fight to prove superiority. They fought to win. "Are you suggesting," another council member hissed, "that these primates outsmarted the Imperium?" "I'm suggesting they used our own history against us. Every tactic we'd employed, every weakness we'd exploited, every mistake our enemies made, the humans learned from all of it." Shalmarax was silent for a long moment. When she spoke again, her words carried the weight of 12 millennia. "Then, we will make an example so complete that no species will dare study us again. Assembled a Talon fleet, 5,000 ships, elite cohorts, world-breaker weapons. Earth will not just burn, it will be erased." Valkarith felt something twist inside him. "Empress, perhaps we should consider." "Consider what? Negotiation? With prey?" Shalmarax's eyes burned like newborn stars. "You have grown soft, Valkarith. The humans have infected you with their defiance. Perhaps you should not lead the next assault." "I will lead it," Valkarith said quickly. "Better him than someone who would show no restraint at all. I will reduce Earth to ash." But as he left the council chambers, Valkarith wondered if he was lying. To the Empress or to himself. The Talon fleet gathered over 6 months. 5,000 warships, the largest military force the Imperium had assembled in 3,000 years. Empress Shalmarax herself would observe from her eternal palace, watching as the humans learned what happened to species who forgot their place. But during those 6 months, something else was happening. On Proxim Factory World Delta 7, workers began producing munitions with subtle defects. Reactor cores that would fail under sustained use. Missile guidance systems with hidden vulnerabilities. Shield generators with backdoors programmed into their code. The dragons never noticed. The Proxim had been making their weapons for so long that no one questioned the process anymore. On Kelthani stations throughout the Imperium, resistance cells formed. They started small sabotaging supply shipments, delaying transport schedules, spreading misinformation through dragon logistics networks. The Kelthani had been administrators and clerks for so long the dragons had forgotten they'd once been warriors. The Yul, forbidden to innovate but required to maintain Imperium technology, began sharing classified information with a mysterious network that had appeared in the galaxy's data streams. Fleet movements, tactical procedures, commander profiles. The dragons never suspected their scholars would betray them. Slaves didn't rebel. That was what 12,000 years had taught them. Slaves didn't rebel. Until someone showed them how. Admiral James Chun stood in the orbital command center above Earth, watching sensor data stream in from across the galaxy. His hair had gone completely white in the months since the first battle. He'd aged a decade in half a year. "Report," he said quietly. "The Talon fleet is 3 days out," his intelligence officer replied. 5,000 confirmed contacts. They're not hiding their approach this time. They want us to see them coming, to understand how hopeless this is, and our allies. The Proxim resistance has confirmed they've sabotaged approximately 30% of the fleet's ammunition stocks. The Kalthani have managed to delay the fleet's arrival by 2 weeks with logistics disruptions. The Yawl have provided detailed tactical data on every ship class in the Armada. Chun smiled, though there was no humor in it. Santis was right. She said if we stood up, others would follow. I don't think she believed it herself. But she said it anyway. "Sir, even with the sabotage, even with the intelligence, 5,000 ships. We barely survived 300. I know." Chun pulled up a display showing Earth's defenses. The planet was a fortress now, every resource dedicated to survival. The moon had been hollowed out and converted into the largest weapons platform humanity had ever built. The asteroid belt was a minefield that stretched millions of kilometers. Mars had been turned into a shipyard, producing fighters faster than the dragons could count them. Humanity had spent 6 months preparing to die. But they'd die standing. "Send a message," Chun said. "Broadcast it on all frequencies, every language, to every species in the Imperium. Tell them what's about to happen here. Tell them Earth will fall, but Earth will not kneel. Tell them that if humanity can resist, anyone can." "Sir, that's sedition, rebellion, exactly what the Imperium fears most." Chun's smile grew sharper. "That's the point. We're not just fighting for Earth anymore. We're fighting for everyone. Who's ever been told they're lesser, that they're property, that their only purpose is to serve dragons." The message went out. Across the galaxy, in 1,000 different languages, on 10,000 conquered worlds, people heard Admiral Chun's words. In 3 days, the Draconic Imperium will attempt to destroy Earth. They will likely succeed. We are outnumbered. We are outgunned. But we are not out of courage. We will fight because some things matter more than survival. Freedom matters. Dignity matters. The right to choose our own destiny matters. To every species watching, you don't have to be strong to be free. You just have to refuse to be a slave. Stand with us. Rise with us. Even if we fall, let the Imperium know that the age of unquestioned dominance is over. 3 days later, the Talon fleet arrived at Earth. And all across the galaxy on 100 worlds simultaneously, the conquered species rose in rebellion. The siege of Terra lasted 18 days, and every moment of it was broadcast to the galaxy. Velkareth led the vanguard, just as he had before. But this time, he wasn't facing Earth alone. A ragtag fleet surrounded the planet. Kalthani transport ships retrofitted with weapons. Proxim mining vessels armed with industrial cutting lasers. Even a handful of Yawl science ships that had somehow escaped their overseers and crossed half the galaxy to join the fight. "They're all going to die," Velkareth, as second-in-command, said quietly. "I know," Velkareth replied. "But they came anyway." The battle began with the same kinetic bombardment that had worked before, but the Talon fleet had adapted. Shields were reinforced, point defense systems enhanced, formation flying adjusted to minimize exposure. The humans had won once by surprise. They wouldn't win the same way twice. But the humans had spent 6 months preparing too. Earth's moon opened fire, revealing itself as a weapons platform of staggering power. Dozens of railguns, each one the size of a city block, launched projectiles that could crack dreadnought armor. Nuclear-pumped lasers carved through dragon shields. Missile batteries filled space with so many warheads that point defense systems simply couldn't track them all. And behind the moon, Mars revealed its contribution. Thousands of fighters, freshly built, piloted by humans who'd trained for this moment since the day the dragons first appeared. They swarmed into the battle like angry hornets, dying by the hundreds, but taking dragon ships with them. The Allied fleet fought with desperate courage. Kelthani captains ran dragon warships when their weapons ran dry. Proxim crews overloaded their reactors and turned their ships into bombs. The Yo, who'd been forbidden to fight for 3,000 years, proved they hadn't forgotten how. Velkareth watched species he'd conquered, people he'd helped enslave, dying to protect the world they'd never even visited. All because the humans had shown them it was possible to say no. The dragons pushed forward. Layer by layer, they dismantled Earth's defenses. The Allied fleet was destroyed in the first 3 days. The asteroid belt fell by day 7. Mars's shipyards burned on day 10. The moon cracked and went silent on day 15. But the cost was staggering. 2,000 dragon ships destroyed or disabled. 5,000 dragons dead. The Proxim sabotage had worked better than anyone expected. Weapons malfunctioned at critical moments. Shields failed under stress. Entire ships suffered catastrophic system failures. On day 16, Velkareth received a priority communication. Kelthani worlds in the core systems were in open revolt. Proxim factory complexes had seized control and were building weapons for the rebellion instead of the Imperium. The Yull had somehow hacked into dragon communications networks and were broadcasting anti-Imperium messages that couldn't be blocked. The galaxy was burning. "Sir," his tactical officer said, "we're receiving a transmission from Earth, from Admiral Chun. He wants to speak with you directly." Velkareth almost refused. What could they have to say to each other now? But curiosity won out. He accepted the call. Chun appeared on his screen. The human looked exhausted, burned, his uniform scorched and torn. He was broadcasting from somewhere on Earth's surface, somewhere that was actively being bombarded. "Ambassador Velkareth," Chun said, his voice hoarse. "I thought we should talk before the end." "There's nothing to discuss," Velkareth replied. "You chose this fate. Did I? Or did you?" Chun coughed, and Velkareth realized the human was injured. "You could have left us alone. Could have found another species to enslave. But you came here, gave us an ultimatum, and expected us to submit because that's what everyone does. You never considered what would happen if we said no. Your defiance has cost billions of lives. Not just human across the galaxy. Every world that rose up in rebellion. They're all dying because you gave them false hope." "No," Chun said firmly. "They're dying because they chose freedom. Because someone finally showed them that dragons aren't invincible, that the Imperium isn't eternal, that they didn't have to accept slavery just because it's easier than fighting." Velkareth thought of the Kelthani, the Proxim, the Yull. Thousands of years of service, of acceptance, of peace. All shattered because one species refused to kneel. "What do you want, Admiral?" "To offer you something the Imperium's never experienced." A choice. Chun leaned forward, and despite his wounds, despite the obvious pain, his eyes were clear. "You're winning this battle. Earth will fall, but you're losing the war. Half the Imperium is in revolt. Your supply lines are collapsing. Every day this continues, more species join the rebellion. You can keep fighting until the Imperium tears itself apart, or you can choose something different. And what would that be? Peace, not the peace of subjugation. Real peace. Where dragons don't rule and humans don't submit. Where species stand beside each other instead of under each other." Velkareth laughed, though it sounded bitter even to his own ears. "Dragons have ruled for 12,000 years. We don't know how to be anything else. Then learn, Chun said simply. We did. You think humans are naturally peaceful? We spent most of our history fighting each other. But when we faced extinction, we learned to cooperate. If we can change, so can dragons. You're asking the impossible. That's what you said when we refused to surrender. That's what you said when we fought back. We've been doing the impossible for months now. Chun smiled, bloody and defiant. What's one more impossibility? The transmission cut off as a dragon bombardment struck Chun's position. Valkareth sat in silence, watching Earth burn below. In 2 more days, maybe 3, the planet would fall. The humans would be reduced to scattered survivors, their civilization broken, their defiance crushed. But the Imperium would be broken too. The revolts wouldn't stop. The conquered species had tasted hope, and that was impossible to eliminate. He thought of Chun's question. What's one more impossibility? Valkareth opened a channel to the High Council. Empress Shalmarax, I request permission to offer terms to the humans. The response was immediate and furious. Absolutely not. They burn until nothing remains. Empress, we're losing the Imperium trying to prove a point to one species. If we continue, then we continue. The alternative is admitting that lesser beings can defy dragons. That our rule means nothing. That 12,000 years of supremacy was a lie. Valkareth closed his eyes. What if it was? Silence. Then Shalmarax's voice, cold and final. You are relieved of command. Commander Thralax will complete the cleansing. Return to Valkarax to face judgment for your cowardice. The channel closed. Valkareth sat in his command chair, watching as Commander Thralax took control of the fleet and prepared for the final assault on Earth. He thought of Chun, probably dead now. Thought of Santas, who'd started this by refusing a choice that should have been simple. Thought of all the species who believed that one act of defiance mattered. Maybe they were right. Maybe that's all it took. One person, one species, one moment of saying no. Valkareth began typing commands into his console. If this was the end of his service to the Imperium, he'd ended doing something that mattered. He sent every classified file he had to the rebellion networks. Fleet positions, tactical weaknesses, political structures, everything. If the humans and their allies were going to fight, they deserved to fight with every advantage. Then he broadcast a message on all channels, to every dragon in the fleet. This is Ambassador Valkareth. I have served the Imperium for 800 years. I have conquered 40 worlds. I have never questioned our right to rule, but I'm questioning it now. Look at what we've become. Look at what we're doing. We're burning a planet to prove we're strong. That's not strength. That's fear. I'm done serving fear. 300 dragon ships broke formation and withdrew from the battle. Not enough to save Earth, but enough to matter. The siege of Terra ended on day 18 when human defenses finally collapsed. Earth fell, its orbital structures destroyed, its military broken. But Commander Thralax, finding no intact government to accept surrender, was forced to negotiate with resistance cells and scattered survivor groups. The war that followed lasted 3 more years. The Imperium fractured, then shattered, then dissolved into 100 independent dragon enclaves. The rebellion cost billions of lives and reshaped the galaxy. 20 years later, an elderly dragon named Valkareth traveled to Earth's memorial site, where billions of names were carved into black stone. He found Chun's name, placed a claw against it gently. A human woman approached, leaning on a cane. Maria Santos, impossibly old now, smiled at him. You came, she said. I had to see it. What we destroyed. What you saved. We both destroyed. We both saved. Santos looked at the memorial. Do you regret it? Every day. But I regret the 800 years before it more. They stood together in silence, dragon and human, watching the sun set on a galaxy that would never be the same. The age of dominance had ended. The age of choice had begun. And perhaps, Valkara thought, that was the only victory that mattered.